Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to episode 3 of INTP Reasonings. The idea here is that I will reason out loud on a topic and try to come to some sort of conclusion that's new to me and perhaps is new to you and will help you reason out for yourself in the process. Couple of announcements. I'm trying out a new microphone setup for this audio. My plan with the comments in this channel right now is to check about once a week or so. So if you leave a comment, I will see it within a week. Okay, so this topic is along the lines of the typology journey. You start getting into self-development or self-help, or you take a test and ultimately find out you have this 4-letter type code, or you learn about socionics, and you're like, ooh, this is interesting. I could be this way, but I actually am this way. So it's telling you who you are, which is great if it's accurate. For example, I am an INTP in the Myers-Briggs system, and I ran into some obstacles along the way as I learned about it. I was like, oh, I'm an introvert. That means that I can just not be extroverted and I can spend all my time within my head. Doesn't quite work like that. Actually, all that it really means is that you are most naturally in a state of being in your head. In reality, I can go do sports. I can be outwardly very emotional and expressive and all these sorts of things. It's just that it tends to be less natural for me to be in those moods, whereas other people may default to those moods. For example, the ESFJ and the ESFP. What does this stuff actually amount to? Like, what does it actually mean? Let's imagine that I'm in everyday conversation. I was at the store the other day, and I happened to be with this girl who I knew was an ISFP, and then the cashier I suspect was probably an ESFJ. Naturally, the ISFP is trying on hats and laughing, and like, oh, look at this hat, ha ha ha. While she's doing that, the cashier looks over and she's like, that's a good one right there. Yeah. You can see instantly the type dynamics playing out in real time. So about 2 years ago, I got into this thing where I started to study social dynamics, which basically is understanding that how you act affects the outcome of things. If you act more fun, people will have more fun. And if you act, mean and cold, people will react accordingly. And it's just kind of this cause and effect. It's like, if I know that I lift weights, I will get stronger and I will get in better shape. So from there, why don't we do the things that we know we should do? Or should we do them? I mean, should I be fun at the cashier and make everyone laugh and have fun? I mean, this is the thing. I can understand what works, and I can also use my FE and try to make it more fun. And probably SC as well in a sense there. And same thing with the social dynamics. I can use TE and know that if I act a certain way, use my TE and NE in combination, I can make things happen a certain way that's more effective. It facilitates a better outcome for everyone. So it's a little bit different because I can have fun in the moment with people. It doesn't necessarily mean a better outcome. And I can have a better outcome that may not be as fun for everyone in the moment, like telling someone the tough, honest truth versus just sugarcoating and having fun. Both of those are things you can do. And I guess constant dilemma for me is which one of those should I choose? And this gets to the heart of the dilemma. For me is like, okay, the mind is like an addict, Sherlock Holmes. Put more stuff in, other things tend to fall out. And so it's really important to keep tabs on your mental space. What do you want to put in your mental space? And I know you can flip into different modes. You can enter different parts of yourself. Like I'm a sound guy. I've been a sound guy for the past few weeks. Before that, I was doing typology pretty much since January, so several months. Before that, I was a sound guy for several months. Before that, I was doing research on narcissism, mental health, Machiavellianism, life path, things like that. And that research lasted probably for about 6 months before that. Before that, I studied social dynamics for about 6 months. And I got super deep into reward structures and incentives and cognitive biases and things that persuade people and influence us. Trying to understand ourselves. How should we act in the world? So I've gone through all these paths, and what I'm trying to do really is pull them all together into a coherent, Sherlock Holmes, how do I pull all of this together into something coherent? That is the real question. I think what you need is some sort of overarching organizing principle or goal. And that's what I personally struggle with. The way I look at it, there are two levels to it. The first level is the day to day. I had some friends over the other day. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. It turned out to be great, but it was a surprise adventure. Couldn't have predicted what happened. Then there's the second level, which is like the overarching story. It's like, okay, I went through this cycle 6 months, this cycle 6 months. When I'm in the first level, I can't really focus on the second level. And when I'm in the second level, it tends to push me out of the first level. It's like I have to be in either one or the other. I can't be in both simultaneously. I would say I'm using an introverted thinking, extroverted thinking heavy approach, and extroverted intuition as well. But I'm pretty much neglecting extroverted sensing, extroverted feeling, and introverted feeling. And my understanding of personality theory is that INTPs are not good at using introverted feeling naturally, and they need introverted feelers to feed their extroverted feeling. So the real answer to the question, I would say, is put yourself around the proper introverted feelers that you want to be influenced by, and the very nature of being influenced by them will take you where you want to go, because then your emotions and morals and ethics and all that will line up with what you really should do. So the ultimate answer here is just put yourself around the right people. People are meant to interact. People are meant to socialize. I mean, on that note, think about personality types. What are they really? They're an element of your identity. What is your identity? My favorite definition that I've heard is how you relate to the world. How do you relate to the cultural narrative? How do you relate to the emotional climate of those around you? How do you relate to your feelings? Specifically, based on the idea of cognitive synchronicity, if you're going to put yourself around introverted feelers, you should put yourself around the ones that are the best match for you. In the case of the INTP, that would be the ENTJ, because their introverted feeling is the analog to your extroverted feeling. And so the way they interact with each other is the most optimal. Okay, let's try to follow that path. Where would the INTP find ENTJs? Well, ENTJs are known for management type roles. They can be video game nerds. Like if you look up Ashley Elisa on YouTube, I believe she is an ENTJ. Let's use some examples of some ENTJs I believe I've met. I had a teacher who was an ENTJ. She was very like, why aren't people more practical? People should be more practical. She was like that all the time, every day. She's like, let's get this done. Let's get through this. Boom, 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 boom. Now that I think about it, we got along really well, and there was a certain emotional energy there, but I didn't know that's what the INTP-ENTJ dynamic looked like. Another ENTJ I met, I was at the smoothie place one day. I just got off the gym, and I was in my mom's car. I hadn't gotten my own car yet. And I went back to the car after I got my smoothie. Wouldn't start. So I walked inside, and I just walked up to the first girl that was standing right there. I was like, hey, my car won't start. Can you help me? She was like, okay. And it turned out, now that I look back at it, she was probably an ENTJ. I just pretty much asked her a bunch of questions about herself. This girl was a chiropractor. She was like the head person at a chiropractor's office. And then she looked at me like, oh, who is this guy? And then I drove off. Now that I think about it, I've always looked at TE hero people as cute. Like, they're like, am I a good person? I think my friend from a few years back was an ESTP. I just didn't realize it at the time, but it makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. Now, what's really interesting about this is if I think back to who I actually ended up sticking around a lot, spending a lot of time with, they actually tended to be people who were the complete opposite of the ENTJ. So I grew up with an ISFJ, and then I was friends with an ISFJ for many years. And most of the women that I actually ended up talking to for more extended periods and knowing for extended periods were ESFJs. So for some reason, we get attracted to the literal opposite of what is our most ideal match. So it's one thing to know what type you're best suited for and understand that, okay, yeah, you tend to be attracted to the literal opposite of that. But it still doesn't make it easy to identify them or know what to look for. And I've thought through this as well, and I would say that the general premise is find someone within an industry you like. So if I like music, find a spot in the music industry where ENTJs tend to be, in some sort of management position. Adele, I believe, is an ENTJ, so you can also find musicians who are ENTJs. The best I can tell you is gonna have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You have to go do things you wouldn't normally do in order to discover new patterns of behavior within yourself or that others are acting out that you can latch onto. Self-selection bias is a term they use, I believe, in economics. It's like if you go to the gym regularly, you're going to run into others who go to the gym. If you play online games, you're going to meet others who play online games. If you're a storm chaser, you're going to run into other sorts of storm chasers. So a lot of this comes down, and this is the whole point of this entire podcast, is it comes down to a matter of identity and figuring out how to choose what your identity should be. And the ultimate question is, what should your identity be and how can you figure that out? I think I'll leave you with this. I've noticed that I tend to like things that I'm good at, and I tend to not like things so much that I'm not good at. If I'm really good at lifting weights, I'll tend to like lifting weights. If I'm really good at math, I'll tend to like math. If I'm really good at XYZ, I'll tend to like it. If I'm bad at talking to people, I won't like talking to people. And what's interesting about that is that if you can get better at lifting weights, if you can get better at talking to people, if you can get better at eating donuts, right, you'll tend to like those things more. So I suppose the ultimate answer here is take a path, follow the path, stick to the path, take the path all the way to the end until there's no one left, and you're the only one forging that far on the path. And push down that path on the bleeding edge until you find new ground, new territory, to where you change the world, revolutionize the world, where others are following you. You are the trailblazer. Music make you lose control.